Okay. Thanks. All right. So hopefully you enjoyed yesterday assessment, and I think most of your doubts were clarified, right? So next Sunday, or probably uh, after a week or so, so we'll have, right, an assessment where you will be writing short answers on all the questions. Example, RTM. Why? What is RTM? What is use of an RTM? Right? Just like that, you'll be writing a few short answers. Okay, that will help, right? To express on your own in the interview. That will give you an habit of explaining things on your own. Okay, so please prepare yourself all the topics, all the contents that we discussed so far, and have some notes on your own. Okay, right. Okay. So guys, so far we have completed a couple of important topics, and we'll be moving ahead with another topic. Okay. So guys, so we have Archana. Do you see Telugu movies, right? Apart from others, because I know you are from different state. You see Telugu movies?
Yeah, but
Okay.
can't understand very deeply.
Did not
But
understand.
uh,
Hmm. Okay. All right. So rest of us are okay. Example, right? So, if you generally we go for movies, right?
mm,
We go for movies generally, and out of that movies, right? So we remember some important scenes. Correct? That's normal. That's very normal tendency, right? So I when you talk to someone, you say that in that movie, I like that scene very much. You tell to your colleagues.
mm,
Right? So, but when your friend asks you, right? Hey, hey, can you tell me what is that scene? Correct? Then you tell him, step by step. Oh, hero comes from this side, or villain comes from this side. Then suddenly this happens. Then immediately this happens. Correct? So you narrate the story step by step. Correct? The first is you'll tell
mm,
from the movie. From the movie, you like this scene very nice. This scene is boring, or this scene is highlighted. Correct? But when you tell the same story to your friend, then so he'll ask you, "Hey, what is that scene here? Can you please tell me?" Then you'll give him some kind of a narration story. Then you tell him step by step procedure. Example, in Telugu movies, right? Balakrishna movies, he'll stop the train with single hand. And you'll say, "Hey, I like that scene very much." Your friend is asking you, "How does it happen?" Then he said, the train is coming from this side, Balakrishna is running from the opposite direction. All of a sudden, so you'll tell a detailed step by step of that particular scene or scenario. So why are we discussing this? How it is related to our testing? Right? Obviously, there is no relation between the movies and testing, but the concept is similar that we're going to discuss now. Is right if any software application, correct? If a software application, because we deal with software applications on day-to-day basis, so we write test cases. That's our job, right? We know test cases. We write test cases. So why we write test cases? We make sure that the application is tested thoroughly. Test case is a detailed Test case is a detailed step-by-step, right? It is a step-by-step procedure where you will test the application based on that steps. But it is the story what you discussed in the movies, right? So when you narrate the step-by-step to your friend, is what the test case. The test cases like the test case are step-by-step procedure. Like you narrate the story to your friend, step by step, what happens. It is the it will say it is a test case because we write test cases in a step by step manner. Detailedly you will write, which in our example we compare this as a test case. And seeing what you described, right? Seeing this combination of these test cases, seeing this combination of the narration story you tell, correct? But in the testing language, we call that as a scenario. Okay. Now, in the normally the step-by-step procedure comes second. First, you'll talk about the scene. The same way, first scenario comes into picture. Then, then from the scenario, the test cases will be derived. Okay. So here today, let me know what you see on the screen.
Conclusion.
All right. This is what it is. Okay. So we'll try to understand today what is a test scenario. We already know what is a test case. We already know what is a test case. We'll try to see what is a test scenario. Right? Now, hope you understand that small example. Okay? You understand the small example, right? Now, in software, right? In software, even that we are going to test it, correct? So, guys, can you see the screen, right? What you see is that the presentation.
Yes, Vinod,
Yes.
test case versus test
Yes,
scenario.
test case versus
Yes.
test
Correct.
scenario.
Test case versus
Oh,
test
okay,
scenario.
great. Okay, thank you. Thank you. So, when we talk about software testing, right? These two things definitely come into your way. One is test cases, the other one is test scenarios. They both look very similar, okay? Both look very hand in hand, very same, but significantly, someone is detailed one, the other one is very focused one. Or what is the primary difference between test cases and test scenario? Right? Test cases talks about detailed level of testing. But test scenario will talk about high level functionality of that application. Now, test cases say that how we are going to provide the steps testing each part of the feature. But test scenarios tells us what features or what function that needs to be tested. So basically, test cases are more like a summary, but test cases for test scenarios are like a summary. Sorry. Test cases are like a detailed one. Okay. So whenever we talk about test scenario, it is a very high level overview of what needs to be tested. But whereas when it comes to test cases, it's more about focusing on complete end-to-end, complete detailed process, complete step-by-step procedure. In the in the normal understanding language, test scenario is like a single line of query, single line query, very simple. It says that what features or functionalities or functions of an application should be tested, but it will not break down the step-by-step procedure. And definitely, this the features, the functions are drawn from where? From the business requirement specifications, BRS and SRS. Now it means First, once you receive the FRS document, once you receive the BRL document or BRD document, whatever name it is, first step is to write the test scenarios. Okay. Once you write the test scenarios, you will write a detailed level of test cases for each scenario. Okay. Example, let's take an example of an e-commerce application. Now, e-commerce application is a huge. E-commerce application is a big, right? It has lot of functionality. Out of which one scenario is validate the payment process in the e-commerce platform or e-commerce application. What is that? What is that scenario? Validate the payment process in an e-commerce application. What is the reason for this? This scenario checks whether the payment process functionality is correctly working or not. But this will not specify the detailed steps. Enter the card details, enter the OTP or payment confirmation, etc. That is covered in the test cases. But the scenario is what validate the process in the or validate the payment process in the e-commerce application. Now, the best practices, right? When you write test scenarios, right? What is that you should keep in mind? What are the industry best practices? Keep test scenarios like very simple. We should be focusing on the entire coverage, just like a functional testing. Now, just like the validate payment process, there might be other scenarios also, like login functionality, like search functionality. But inside the login functionality, you have multiple test cases. Valid username, valid password, both are valid, both are invalid. One valid, other one is invalid. Other one is invalid, first one is valid. So there might be n number of test cases out of one scenario. Okay, so always you should keep focus on the entire functionality when you write test scenarios. Example, if someone tells you that to test the application, you should have a knowledge of that particular domain. Then only you can write a test scenario. Example, you are coming from a insurance domain, but you never worked on e-commerce platform. You cannot write. You may write e-commerce platform scenarios, but that may not be effective because you don't have thorough knowledge like insurance. So always to cover the test scenarios, you should have a domain expert. That is where people take experienced people in the project which are similar. Each scenario should be very clear when you write, and always it should be a single line of statement. What it should cover the objective of the test scenario. Very important. You should also, you know, do a peer review once you write the test scenarios, whether it is actually reflecting the user needs, any risks are there, whether, example, somebody has written 10 test scenarios for the application. So are there any other scenarios? Did tester leave anything? Did tester miss out anything? Correct. So based on the situation to situation, testers should prioritize the scenarios, right? Based on the customer needs, based on the stakeholders, based on the project status. You should prioritize the scenarios. Right. Anyone getting confusion of what is going on?
No, Vinod.
No, Vinod.
No, Vinod.
No, no.
Right. Yeah. Now let's take an example of a test cases and test scenarios. Now, I mean, now at least you understand at a high level. Test case is a high level one. Test, test scenario is the high level one. Test case is the detail level one. Right. Right. Now, let's take an example of a banking application where a test case might like you know verifying certain functionality of a fund transfer. Okay. Now this will the way they'll write is steps include log into the account, select the account selection, enter the transfer amount, authentication, or confirmation, and etc. These are your test steps inside your test case to check whether the particular fund transfer is happening right or wrong. But whereas it comes to test scenario, right, there will be no detailed level of test steps. It is only one line statement which might say test the fund transfer feature in simple line. Test the fund transfer feature. But when it comes to detail level, then there will be a steps like login account selection that happens in the test case. So very important as a tester, project to project again. So it is not mandatory that every organization, every companies do this practice. Once the requirement comes, people start first test the scenarios. Let's say there are 10 to 15 scenarios has been written. Then for each test scenario, there will be multiple test cases. Somebody directly write the test cases, somebody follow this process. But when you go for an interview, you should know what is the test scenario. So again, so what you see on the screen, test scenario gives us a high level idea of what need to be tested. Very high level idea. It will not tell you the detailed steps. It only tell you at a high level what is that scenario, right? Now we just discussed what is the test scenarios, right? There are many test scenarios in one application. So one scenario is check the search functionality. Maybe it is only one line because we are writing the test scenarios, not the test case. Test scenario is always a one line, single line query, which looks like this. Check the search functionality. What is the another scenario? Example, check the payments functionality. This is another scenario. But check the search functionality is again having a multiple steps to check whether the functionality is working fine or not. Somebody has to launch the URL. Somebody has to log in username and password. Somebody has to, you know, type the product inside the search. Somebody has to hit the search button, then see how the product is displaying, whether it is displaying as per the search. I'm searching the shoes, whether it is displaying shoes models. I'm searching for a particular books, whether it is displaying books correctly. So that's all again that the detail level steps comes under test case. But what we are right now learning is the test scenarios. As a tester, first you will write the test scenarios, then you will write the test cases for each test scenario. This will be interview question. Which we will ask, will you write test case first, test scenario first? You should always say you will write the test scenario first. Then for the each test scenario, there will be multiple test cases. Okay. What is the third scenario? This is a login functionality. This very simple one. So these are not only the test scenario. These are three examples of a scenarios in an e-commerce platform. Any confusion, guys, so far?
No, Vinod.
Vinod.
No,
No,
no.
Vinod.
Okay, good. Let's go on to further. Now, we just checked, right? The login functionality was one of the scenario. So, what is that I'm going to write as a scenario? Obviously, it is like this. Test scenario is check the login functionality. Is my test scenario. What is here under that is the test cases. Now, how many test cases that we got? One, check the behavior when valid email address and password is entered. Second case is invalid email, valid password. Third is valid email, invalid password. Valid email, invalid password. Well, these are the different test cases which are coming out of the test scenarios. So you have to make a habit. You have to make a habit of writing test scenarios first. Go to any website. Go to any website. Go to bank website. Prepare a few test scenarios. Practice. Guys, this will help you to write the effective test scenarios and test cases. Go to any bank. Go to any website. Go to any website that you like. Study the website and prepare the high level test scenarios. Then start preparing the test cases. That will be helpful for you. See, without practice, the people who are doing it very good, you should do it more to get more confidence. These test cases, test scenarios are your bread and butter. Every day you will be writing the test cases, you will be executing test cases. You'll be writing test cases, you'll be executing test cases. Luckily, in few projects, what happens, right? There will be already thousands of test cases is already being written, and you only do a regression testing. You take the dump, you take the hundreds of test cases, you read and you execute. You read and execute. Luckily, you'll be in that process. But 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 trust me, pray to God that you should be in a new project where you will write your test cases. That is where you will learn the subject. So first you have to learn the subject, understand the reality, understand the practice, understand the hands-on. Then later on, anyway, once you become senior, right? You will only guide the team. You will only tell the team what to do. You'll only see the reports. You'll only manage preparing this test plan, preparing the bug reports. Detail level, ground level, testers 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus people only do the groundwork. So trust me, without practice, you'll not become a good doctor, you'll not become a good advocate, you'll not become a good developer, you'll not become a good tester. You need a neat, thorough practice. And I always tell you, communication plays an important role in testing. Without communication, those days are gone. 95% used to get a jobs. Now, your communication plus 30% of subject will give you a job. Keep practicing. Keep talking to your friends, colleagues. Keep asking questions in the class. Develop your communication skills. That will boost up your confidence. Okay. Yeah. Coming back to it. So for the test scenarios, so we have written almost 8 test cases. So as a best practice, what you will derive? Test cases first or test scenarios? Which one will be derived first?
Test
Test
scenario.
cases.
Scenarios.
Test scenarios.
Test
This will be interview
scenarios.
question. Not get confused. Okay. Test steps will have detailed one, or test scenarios will be having a detailed steps.
Test
Test
cases.
cases, detailed one.
Test cases. Which one is a single line of query? Which one is written
Test,
in a single line?
Test scenario.
test scenario.
Test
Test
scenario.
Test
scenario.
scenarios. Right. 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 So that is how you should have the knowledge. Let's get into the second one. Now, what is the importance, right? We have studied, we have understood. Now let's focus on what each one does. So obviously, the left-hand side is a test scenario, the right-hand side is a test case. Test scenario is always at high level that we discussed, which, right? But though it is high level, it covers all the scenarios inside the application. That is where we call that as a end-to-end functionality is tested. Correct? So it is not like that. They only cover the payment gateway, which is important. It is only login page. It is important. It is search page. There is as a tester, you should have a good domain knowledge to cover all the functionalities of the application. Again, on the other hand, the test case is a definitely detailed steps. It should have a data, test data. You should have expected results. You should have actual results. If it is failed, defect ID, everything is captured. The test scenario, as we discussed, it is focused on what to test. Correct? So it is not bothered or how they are going to test it. How many steps are involved while writing the test scenario. While writing the test scenario, you'll only know, you'll only understand what needs to be tested. Payment gateway needs to be tested. Search functionality needs to be tested. How it is tested, what are the steps involved, it is written in the test cases under hand. Test case, test case generally focuses on, right? Yeah, it focuses on what to test and how to test. It's very simple. And as we just discussed, test case scenarios are only one-liner, right? There is only a one-liner, but whereas test cases is multiple liners. Now, this is very important. Test scenarios are driven by, from the BRS and SRS, but test cases are most of the time derived from the test scenarios. Okay, just like the step by step. First FRS document, then test scenarios, then test cases. Correct? This is how it should be. Right? So it helps in agile way of testing the end-to-end functionality. So we'll talk about agile in next 1 or 2 days. So just understand agile is a way of welcoming changes anytime in the project. So that will help you to cover the end-to-end testing. So obviously, these cases are written in a detailed level. Definitely, it helps in a exhaustive testing. So it will cover maximum coverage of the testing because you're writing in the test steps. Yeah, again, the same thing, high level and low level actions. Comparatively less time and resources are required for, okay, obviously. For the test scenarios, right? One resource is more than enough to write the test scenarios, which is of one line. But whereas to write the test cases, each test case might be having multiple test steps. So it is a time consuming, need more time for documentation, more time for the execution. That is why we have studied one of the question, manual testing is of time consuming. Thus, we are going to write the detailed level of testing. Right? Now we saw where we write the test case template. Your lead will give you whatever they follow is organization, he will share it to you. If at all your project is having a mandatory option, right? You have to write the test scenario, then you have to collect the test scenario template, and this is how you write the test scenarios. See here, what is covered? Scenario number one is there. Second column is requirement ID. For which requirement you're writing the test case, test scenarios. See S1.1, S1.2. For the requirement, how many scenarios they are writing? What is example? They have written 5 scenarios, what you see on the screen. Login functionality, search functionality, product description, payments functionality, and order display. These are all test scenarios for one requirement. This is how you are going to write in the test scenario document, which is mostly in the Excel sheet only, unless and until there is a Word document being prescribed by your organization, you should be using test scenario. First thing, whenever you join any new project, right? As a tester, you should understand how what is the stage, which stage the project is in. Generally, they'll hire you when the project is starting. That is a very good good option where to hire developers and testers. Whenever this project is about to sign, project is signed and it is going to start next week, generally developers and testers will be hired. Right, the moment you join, so there will be allocation of a seat, desk, where you're going to sit, who is your project manager, who is your team, what project you are in. They'll issue ID cards, they will issue laptops, everything they'll be issued. Then immediately you'll have a kickoff meeting where all the project team will gather in one room and your PM will brief you about the project. What is this project? What are we going to do? Who is the PM? Who is the architect? Who is the DA? Right? Slowly you will be your team lead will talk to you. Then your team lead will have a separate meeting. He'll brief you what is the testing model, testing techniques, what is the scope of this, whether we are doing manual automation, everything will be. So that is where you have to start asking questions. What is the template for this case? What is the template for? Did you? When are we going to receive the test plan? When we'll be receiving the RTM documents? So where can we collect the test case template? Are we going to write the test scenarios? So all things, because you're learning these all things, you should speak out in the interview. Sorry, in the meetings when the project meetings are executed. Okay. All right. Any confusion so far? Any confusion so far?
No, no.
No,
No.
Vinod.
No.
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 Okay, great. So, do you think writing a test scenario is good? The project? What do you suggest?
Yes.
Yes, according to
Yes.
scenario.
No one word answer. I don't think testers should
Uh,
not give one word answer. That is very bad
Writing
habit.
Test scenarios are
Yeah.
according to the
Good.
scenarios, we can write the test cases. So it is
Right.
yes.
So correct. So always you should say if somebody is asking like this, you say yes, writing test scenarios is always benefiting to the project. So that will cover the test coverage is more when you write the test scenarios. That will give you. You should speak. See, nobody will be penalizing you. Why are you speaking like this? But you should make up the habit. The more you keep quiet, you will never learn anything. Right? So you have to speak. Okay. All right. Good. All right. Okay. Now let's proceed with the next topic. The next topic. Okay. Now example, you're writing the test cases, right? What is your what is your important job, right? So it's like this. Most of the time, what is the job of a project manager? Most of the time, 90% his job is to manage the project. And what is the most important job of a developer, right? His job is to write the code. He has to write the code. He has to test the code. What is the important job of a tester? He or she should write test cases. His job is to write the test cases. Write the test cases, execute the test cases,
Execute the test cases.
right? Execute the test cases, raise the defects, follow up with developer, check the defect, close it. If it is not fixed, reopen it. Your job is to do all these things, right? Out of which writing the test cases is very, very important. Okay. Now we understand as a tester, you write test cases. Now you will be writing test cases for lot of functionalities. Lot of functionalities. So we are not bothered of all the functionalities that you write. There is no option. You have to write it. But example, if you have if you have something where you want to write a test case for a username or a text box which is accepting a value between 18 to 100. It only accepts a value between 18 to 100 only, including 18 and 100. How many test cases you write? Example, Come on, right or wrong? Speak out. See, you have to test the text box, which is accepting values between 18 to 100. 18 and 100 is also included. You have to write the test cases. So you will write 18 number entered, 19 number entered, then you'll write like vice versa, 18 to 100. Correct? Positive. Then you'll write the output. After entering the 18 value, text box is accepting. Yes. Now expected output and the actual output is the expected and the actual is both are same. Correct? Are you following with me,
Yes.
everyone?
Yes, yes,
Yes,
yes.
we know.
Let me know if you are confused. Okay, I'm just giving you a simple, very simple example. A text box is accepting a number. Let's say age. It is a age text box. It is accepting between 18 to 100. Just imagine 100 years someone is living. Okay. Let's don't think too much about why 100 is people only live till 75. Forget about it. Just an example. 18 to 100. Developer has given you, hey boss, now this field will only accept 18 to 100. 18 is also included, 100 is also included. To test the test box, you are going to write the test cases. Simple, right? So what you will write in this test step, you will write for 18 to 100 steps, correct? To verify whether each input is correctly being entered. If it is entered, text box is accepting correctly or not. Yes or no?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Correct. You will write now 18 to 100. Almost how many test cases? Almost 80 test cases you will write. That is positive. Now, what about negative test cases? Example, you have to write below 18 or not accepted. It means 17 or not accepted. Above hundreds are not accepted. Below 17 bolo to 1 to 17 are not accepted. -1, -2, -3 is also not accepted. Just imagine how many negative test cases you are going to write. Do you have any number in mind?
No, no.
It will be how many test cases? It will be huge number of test cases, correct?
Yes.
Right. So in these situations, okay. So whenever you're going to test, especially input text boxes, which is having certain range like 18 to 100, 10 to 12 numbers, right? So if you start writing test cases, it will be a lengthy test cases where you will end up writing too many test cases in it. Writing too many test cases, executing too many test cases will hit the project time. It will not be a good idea, right? So why we going to do that? To make sure that that particular input box is properly working, right? We make sure that the functionality and the performance meets the end user requirement, correct? Right? Now, so we follow a few testing techniques. What we follow? We follow few testing techniques to make sure that our software is tested thoroughly so that we can find the issues in the software applications. Right? Now, there might be lot many techniques. You need to choose right software testing technique to ensure it is meeting the end user requirements. Right? So let me share the screen. Let me know what you see on the screen.
Test scenario template.
Right. Okay. Now, yeah. So these are the testing techniques, what you see on the screen, right? Equivalence partitioning, boundary value analysis, cause effect graphing, error guessing. Right? Out of all four, the first two are very, very important for the interview point of view and also for the real time writing the test cases. The rest of the two, the last one is error guessing. That is again doesn't have a proper procedure or anything. It is like you guess and test the application. There is no proper at all. As its name suggests, error guessing. It is a kind of guessing the error in the software application and testing it, assuming there might be error in this area. Right? There is no proper procedure, no proper steps. It is only guessing the error on an application. But when it comes to cause effect graphing, it is more of validating the logical errors inside the coding. Generally, the developers are doing this, but very rare testers are doing it. But for the interview purpose, this is a name which you should know, cause effect graphing, but it is not being used in the real time. It is generally you will not get too much of time also. But for the interview purpose, you should know there are four black box techniques, right? Anywhere you're not touching anywhere the structural part of the application without the inner code, without the code which is being developed, without touching that. If you are testing the functional part of the application, we call that as a black box testing. We studied in detail. All these four are related to the black box testing techniques. Okay, out of which equivalence partitioning, boundary value analysis are more important. People call this as ECP in real time or EP. ECP stands for equivalence class partition or EP, equivalence partitioning. Both are same. Second one, boundary value analysis, or people will ask what is BVA. B for boundary value analysis. Okay. Hope you're clear with this. How many types are there? There are four types
Four
of
types.
black box techniques. Okay. Now what is equivalence partitioning, ECP? Now example we just discussed, right? If you are testing a input box which is just accepting in numbers 1 to 1000, right? Now, to test that input box, there is no use of writing all the 1000 valid inputs and all the other invalid data to test whether input box is working fine or not, right? So what equivalence partition says, right? What equivalence partition says. So we will divide, right? We will divide, right? It will give us an option of expediting the test cases. Instead of writing 1 to 1000 test cases, it gives us a few tips of writing the test cases. What it says, let's look at the next slide. Now, what it says, you have to divide into three parts. One, valid. Second, invalid. Third, invalid. You have to write three boxes: valid, invalid, and invalid. Right? Now, what is a valid data? Right? What is valid data? What is valid data? What is valid data? Pick any value between 1 to 1000. It is valid, correct? Any value between 1 to 1000, it is valid. Correct? For
Yes.
every value between 1 to 1000, the output should be the same. What is the output? It should accept the text box. Correct? Right?
Yes.
Now the same
Yes,
thing,
Vinay.
if we take it for invalid data, anything less than 1, it should not accept. Correct? Anything less than 1, it should not accept. Do you agree? Like -1, -2,
Yes, Vinod.
-3.
Yes, it's not
It should not accept, correct? Right? If it is accepting, then there is an issue. And ideally, it should not accept. Right? Now, what is the other invalid data? Anything greater than 1000.
Greater than 1000.
Now, did you observe what is the difference that you are looking at? What is the difference that you're looking at? Now, the range is 1 to 1000, right? Instead of testing whole range of data, 1 to 1000, equivalence partition is telling you to divide the whole range into some partition. 1 valid, 2 invalid, 3 invalid. So now, what is the 1 is here, lower bound. 1,000 is your upper bound. Anything below lower bound, it is invalid. Anything above upper bound, it is invalid. Anything between 1 to 1000 is a valid. What it says, instead of testing the whole range, one by one, you only write the 3 test cases. Now, what you see on the screen are the three test cases. Ideally, how many test cases it should be? It should be more than how many? Around 1000 test cases, right? Around 1000 test cases. Okay. Now, what equivalent class partition says, whenever you have a huge range of data or a mixture of so many requirements, right? It is suggested to use equivalence class partition or EP. It says divide the inputs into different classes. Now we have divided into 3: valid, invalid, and invalid lower bound, invalid upper bound. Correct? Then you write the test cases for each case. Okay. Now let's look at other example. Then you will get an idea. Okay. Time now. Another 8 minutes. Okay. Now there's another text box which is actually accepting a mobile number. Okay. And the length of value is to be 10. Now it's only a text box which is accepting only numbers, which is a 10. Now what should be the cost? Again, what we do here, the input range can be divided into 3 equivalence data classes using ECP technique. 1 valid and 2 invalid. That's what we did here, right? 1 valid, 2 invalid.
Invalid.
Same thing, we will write 1 valid and 2 invalid classes. Now here are the test cases for the mobile number, right? 1 valid is what? Anything equal to less than 10, or right, anything, example, if a developer has written 10 numbers only can be accepted, then the valid will be exact 10 digits will be accepted. What is invalid? Less than 10, it shows it is invalid. Even 9 numbers is also invalid. Greater than 10, 11 is invalid. Otherwise, how many times you have to write the test cases? Like, let's say 10 numbers, right? So you have to write long test cases. It is correct to make sure the input box is accepting the 10 values. Right now, how many test cases we have written? Only 3 test cases. So always what it says, always whenever a range whenever any range is given to you, like 10, it is accepting 10. Previous example was 1 to 1000, correct? Whenever a range kind of input needs to be tested, we always use equivalence class partition, correct? And you will write 3 boxes. One is valid, the other 2 as invalid. Okay. Now this will
And
reduce your.
uh,
Yeah, go ahead. Who's that?
Vinod, if we enter in that text box, we enter the alphabets or special characters. then
Hmm.
it also invalid data test case, na?
Obviously, it is saying your text box is accepting numbers. Correct. Mobile number is always numbers, right? So you have, if you want to validate with the strings, yeah, you have to validate. But ideally, we'll validate with the numbers. If you want, you can also validate with the strings. Ideally, strings should not be accepted. If it is related, example, the name or the combination, password combination, alphanumeric combination. In that cases, you have to use the characters also. Okay. Yeah, this
Okay.
is how you have to write. This is how you have to write on the screen. What you see, one invalid in the bit in the middle, the other two on the other side. Invalid less than 10, invalid greater than 10. Middle one is the valid scenario. So you always you this is a partitioning. So what you see is partitioning. You have divided or you have partitioned the range into three data classes. One is invalid, middle one is valid, third one is invalid. Now inside that you will write what is a valid, sorry, invalid first, vice versa. If it is a sequence wise, anything less than 10, it is invalid. Right? Now you will write the test cases for one less than 10. You will write test cases for valid only one. You will write the test cases for greater than 10. Now it means what ECP is giving us, whenever any range kind of input needs to be tested, right? Instead of testing each input by input, each value, it is telling us to divide the whole input into a equal data classes with the help of a ECP technique. One as a valid, two invalid classes. Then you prepare what is a valid data, what is invalid data. Then your test cases you can be written on this three partition values. Okay, so that will reduce. This is another example. See here. This is another example. I'll finish off in next 3 minutes. I have actually a call at 10:10. So I need to join that call. So then another example is what? Where date field which is accepting. Now I have written one valid in between and the other two partitions invalid. Invalid partition is what? I prepared a data 0, -1, -1, vice versa. Valid is what? 1 to 31. I've written. Invalid, I written 32 because 31 above. Correct? Now I will input any of these values inside the text box and see. Oh, invalid is partition. It means it should not accept. If I input -1 into the text box, that should not accept it. If it is accepting, then there is an error. I put 33, it should not accept because it is an invalid partition. If I input a value of 3, it should accept because it is a valid input. Right? Now, based on this input, you will go and input the values into your text box. Anything which is showing mismatch, example, from the invalid table column, you put the value. If it is allowing, that is a mismatch. If you put a valid number inside the input text box, it is not allowing, then it is a mismatch. Okay, you got that example? This is another example of a username where a input text box is accepting a character 6 to 10. Less than 6, greater than 10 is not accepted. Now I have prepared three partitions again. Invalid is 0 to 5, obviously. Any characters less than 6, you should not accept. Valid is what? Anything between 6 to 10. If I enter 6 characters, it should accept. It should act, if I entered 8 characters, it should accept. If I enter 10 characters, it should accept. Similarly, invalid partition. Anything above 10, 11 characters, it should not accept. Well, now, the idea behind this ECP is it will reduce the time and effort, right? It is a technique. Technique is what? It is a kind of a option which is available for testing team to write very effective test cases right? What it says, instead of testing a whole input range, please divide that input range into three partitions, two invalid, one valid. Right? These techniques are being used since ages. Don't ask me why only three partitions, why not 10 partitions. That is being used in the past. We are using it. It will be used in future unless you invent something, right? This technique to be used effectively, then it will be followed by others. Otherwise, we keep using equivalence plus partition. Any confusion here, guys? What is ECP?
No, Vinod, it's clear.
No, Vinod.
It's clear.
Okay. All right. Okay. So we will stop the session here and we will continue uh, our session tomorrow. And guys, tomorrow, let me stop the